When you need to build up your team to handle the growing chaos at work, use Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It gives your job post the boost it needs to be seen and helps reach people with the right skills, certifications, and more. Spend less time searching and more time actually interviewing candidates who check all your boxes. Listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need a hiring hero? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs.
This episode is brought to you by Accenture. When your advertising operations fall out of sync, everything else follows. Spotify and Accenture are working together to reinvent the rhythm of ad sales, using automation, analytics, and smarter workflows to simplify campaign delivery and access better data across the business. The result? Less time spent on operations, more time connecting brands with the moments and fandoms that matter most. Learn more at accenture.com/Spotify.
So what does it actually take to build a global career at Google across 4 countries in your second language and with no one opening the door for you? My guest today did exactly that. Victoria Rozanska is the Global Partnership Development Manager at Google, and her path to get there is one you need to hear. I'm Tannia, and if you're a leader who's a non-native English speaker, this is for you. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to share your story because you did something that is sometimes a common part of the journey of a non-native English speaker growing a global career. And that's that you don't have the same advantage as someone who was born and raised in the US, who has the connections, who has the ability to have referrals or have references. So your journey it impressed me. So you started in Poland. Can you tell me a little bit about when you decided tech was going to be the path for you?
So I remember I applied to the internship in Poland. I remember I was so grateful for this internship and it was amazing time. But the fact I was doing accounting, I was like, this is not for me. Or however, it was also a tech company, right? And I got another internship at Accenture. And that was more as a management consulting. But it was very interesting because my team, even though it was in Poland, my team was pretty international. So I was working with the department in France as a management consultant. So I had to use my English even though I was in Poland, which was pretty satisfying because I always wanted to work in English. And I remember I was already on my tech path. I saw also Google summer internships, right? Google has its own brand, and I was always not fully confident and not fully aware that I can get that position. But I remember my dad showed me one of the podcasts about designing your own life. And I remember one person, she was 12 years, she was a country manager in Google Cloud. And I remember she was talking about that journey, getting into Google, and she sent her CV 10 years before to Google. And after 10 years, Google reached out to her and they want her to be actually a country director at Google after 10 years.
That's a different journey.
So I was, you never know. If I send right now, maybe in 10 years, I can get a job at Google. Hey, let's try. I was trying to learn also from other people's journey and what is possible, because sometimes we have so many limited beliefs, which we even don't think that it exists in our head. But then we listen to someone else's journey and I'm like, okay, I can do the same. I can duplicate that, right? And so after that, I just applied for the internship and I was just waiting.
I'm going to pause you there before you get to the next chapter as a cliffhanger to those listening. So at this point, first of all, the fact that you were inspired by someone else's story and that let you think, you know what, if she waited 10 years and got this amazing position, I could. That's one of the reasons I like doing these interviews, because I find that a lot of those stories do tend to be native English speakers who climb the ladder and have these opportunities. So you're here to be someone else's story of, wow, she was in Poland and just decided to go for it. So before you reveal what happened with that internship application, what were you feeling at that time? Were you doubting your English skills? Were you confident about that? Was it more of a, if I get it, if not, this is going to be my 10-year journey?
So basically, in terms of English, I already studied in the UK, so I had some confidence in this language. And I worked a little bit in English. Also, before doing this big internship in tech, I had many other jobs, which I could talk hours about that ones, right? But it was in practice. I did wear many hats. So every experience just brought me closer to my goal. And I feel like the more experiences you have, the more confident you are in the later stages of your life, of your job, because I already done done that. I already done hard things. So you feel that you can actually challenge yourself a little bit more. And what I was feeling, to answer your question, I think that I was just, if I get it, that would be so good. But I didn't put myself so much pressure because I also gave myself a room to breathe and to prepare rather than putting pressure on myself. I was like, I can prepare the best as I can be prepared. I can watch all of the videos, read all of the guides, how to prepare, memorize my whole experiences, right? I can do that to the fullest, but the outcome doesn't matter, because what matters is what I've done for myself and how much effort I put rather than the outcome of the situation. So I trained this detachment from the outcome, but I made sure that I could do everything what is in my power to be prepared as best as I can.
Oh, such a great motivation. Also, linguistically, or from the English side, as an aside from your story, for the listeners, my beautiful insiders, what she just did, or she started answering the question, and then she realized, oh, wait, there was a second part of that question. And so she said, but to answer your question about, and then answer that really concisely, that is a great way to, when you find yourself going on about something else, to catch it, redirect. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Yes, because it's really hard when you don't have those little phrases and you're like, oh, how do I bring it back? So that was awesome. Okay, so now tell us what happened with the application.
Yeah, so that was very funny also what happened, because I sent my CV and everything. I was like, okay, done. I cannot do anything else. And then I got an email that unfortunately, no.
This summer, soccer is here, and so are the watch parties. And Uber Eats has your game day essentials covered. Everything you need to keep your crowd happy, delivered straight to your door. Get wings, pizza, chips, dips, fresh ingredients, and more. Keep the soccer going and all your game day essentials flowing. Order in so you can lock in for the games. Only on Uber Eats for a limited time.
Tomorrow morning is knocking. Stock your fridge now. How about a creamy mocha frappuccino drink? Or a sweet vanilla? Smooth caramel maybe? Or a white chocolate mocha? Whichever you choose, delicious coffee awaits. Find Starbucks Frappuccino drinks wherever you buy your groceries.
Oh, wait, I didn't know this part of the story. Okay.
What I remember is, oh, unfortunately, we have other candidates, this automated email. And then I was like, okay, that's fine. That's fine. And then after a month or a couple of weeks, I got another email. Welcome to Google. We're happy to invite you to the first round of interviews. I am your recruiter. I think that this happened in many Google stories. You were rejected and then you were accepted a couple months later, or you were rejected first and then they actually thought that the other position is better for you. There's so many movements at the company, so you cannot be discouraged. You never know. And after I got full-time job at Google with Polish customers, so I had to work in sales with Polish customers in Dublin, but everything else was in English. So that was very challenging because I didn't know Polish business language. So I did know English because I studied in the UK, but Polish business language was like, I have no idea what's going on. So I had to learn from clients on the job, from my colleagues, how to actually be able to speak in Polish business language, even though that was my native.
Yes. Wait, I have a similar experience because I'm technically native speaker in English and in Spanish, but
Yes.
like you, all my education was in English and all of my business development was in English. So then whenever I'm trying to talk about business in Spanish, I realize I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I saying? Or how do I express that?
I know, right? It's so hard. Oh my God, how was your main tip, your main insight from that?
My tip is be uncomfortable, do it anyway. And when you're stuck, just say it. I would just like very open, like, you know what? I don't know how to express this in Spanish. And then they would help me, or we would just like, switch to bilingual. So part of it's being comfortable with being uncomfortable would be my biggest tip.
Exactly. And also, I think other people are really understandable regarding that. People want to help you, and the right people.
Or my cousin,
But-
Megan.
Family is
Right.
different.
Family's different.
Different in family. But I feel like people really want to help you. The right people are there, so for sure.
Yeah. So let's fast forward. You've now successfully gotten in the big company. A big thing for your journey is you went from Dublin and then you went to the US, so many cultural differences. Before we get into the work cultural differences, what about your communication evolution? Here is interesting. You actually had to work on your Polish the communication evolution. What about being in this big corporate setting as your position evolved to be English, fully in English? Did you ever have a moment where you thought, oh, maybe I need to practice more about this, or any insecurities that came up, or just areas you wanted to improve?
Honestly, that's such a good question because that's something I think about a lot recently. As I mentioned you before, I was like studying in the UK. That was like fresh. I was like 18 or 19. I was such a baby. And I was like, yeah, I can do it. I can stay in the UK. And then I don't feel like being in the UK was the most welcoming place to be non-native English speaker, especially in Wales. I think that no. If I had go back, I would go somewhere else. But I feel like people weren't really open to me learning English and studying English at the university, yes, but a normal day-to-day life, not really.
Yeah.
But then Dublin was great because I met people all over the world. I made friends with people from Africa, MENA region, like Asia. Also, there's some Americans there too. Dublin was a very international hub. So that helped me actually to leverage my English and be friends with people from all over the world and make sure that I can understand the internal jokes or any other things. There are some British people actually in Dublin who correct me because that's British English. But then I moved to Bay Area, to the US, and I love it so much because a Bay Area, especially, it was such a welcoming place for getting from Europe to the US and especially to Bay Area. That was like the best place I could end up as beginning of my US journey because people were super welcoming. The American English, it's great because the accent is so easy and it's so melodic and you can pick up very easily by chatting about having the small talks or chatting about, I don't know, a type of sweater. So like so many irrelevant things which you think, like the small talks and making sure that you pick up all of the sentences there. It's so great. And I really recommend if someone wants to learn English, go to the US, go to the Bay Area or California, because that's how you can actually practice it with a smile on your face. Even if you make a mistake, and sometimes I do make mistakes for my friends, like a grammar mistake or something, they understand me. They don't pretend, oh, what did you say? So that kind of helped me also to pick up my English skills. And even I make some mistakes, it doesn't matter because overall the sentence, the context is there. And they make sure to understand me. But when I was in Europe, like UK, Ireland, maybe no, but Irish accent, it's honestly very hard to understand.
It's different.
It's so different.
I'm also not Irish shows, but I usually put the subtitles on
Subtitles.
because it's not only the accent, but also, like you mentioned, like the colloquialisms, the different
Yes,
pop culture references or cultural references. And I don't know what.
exactly.
If you were the subtitles, I'm like, what?
What was that? No, you have to be very focused, right? And that's why I'm saying I feel like California was like the best place to start. And yeah, it's just something about that, something about people there. So that would actually give me confidence then to even work in English because I had to fully transfer from Dublin to San Francisco without. Honestly, I remember, as we mentioned, right? I landed on Friday and I started my job on Monday. And then jet lag, admin stuff, like exhausted. My luggages were keep coming. I was so exhausted, exactly. And then I didn't have a place. I did have a place for 2 weeks, but I had to look for an apartment. And then I had to start my quarter. And the thing was, the quarter was fully in English. And then from working in Polish, in 2 weeks, I had to pack everything, my whole life in Europe, move to the US. And then having ability to pick up so quickly all of the products in English, selling those products in English before I was selling them in Polish in Dublin, right? It was overnight kind of transfer for me. And that was a very like a deep water. I have to make sure
Sink or swim.
to sing or swim. Yeah, exactly. Because I was by myself, right? But I was very lucky because I met incredible people in California who really helped me to find things so easily, like life things. Sometimes it's hard for you if you don't know anyone, but very helpful people I'm cross paths with.
Let's pause there for a second because that's something that,
Yeah.
again, not only did you get the job and really your evolution without the same connections that maybe somebody else might have, but the, like you said, overnight move of having to uproot your life, start a new job literally 2 days after you land, and have to find an apartment and all of the things that come with that.
Build
build your life essentially in 48 hours.
Assemble furnitures. Assemble all of the furnitures. I can do it.
Furniture, relearning your products to sell. With that, community is so important and people are so important with any phase of life. But in this kind of really interesting move that you did, how did you make those connections in those relationships? Because I find that a lot of people that I coach, small talk is really challenging, especially American small talk feels or sounds very superficial, but there's a reason we engage that way. So it can be hard coming from, and then we're also smiley all the time that it's like, why is everybody smiling? And so I know that's something that I've had to help people with the cultural shock. So for you, how did you connect with people so that you could set up your life and create community when you didn't know anyone?
That's such a good question. And honestly, it's hard for me to answer that because I just flow with life. I feel like the first thing was just arriving and finding my apartment through internal Google group where I was able to sublet a room from one of the Googler. And thanks to this roommate, she was like the first person I met. So I was able to chat more about my story, about her story, and just be curious, asking questions, asking how long she's been in San Francisco, etc. And just sharing the common experiences which we had. And I remember I told her that I love dancing, I love yoga. We're like talking about meditation. And I remember she invited me to one of the sun bath classes. I remember that was sun healing. Yeah, because I told her that I love doing that. So she's like, oh yeah, my friend who actually I met at the gym invited me there. So you can come with me. I was like, okay, great. Inviting. I didn't have anything because I didn't know anything in the city. But the important thing, which I learned also along the way, is just invite people to things and find out what they're interested in, how curious they are in some kind of topics, and just bring some invitations. I was fortunate enough because I was invited there. So then I met the organizer who was like her friend. I remember it was my first week. I was so exhausted and she invited me and my roommate at the time to her house. She prepared soup for us. She cooked for us. And I was like, oh my gosh, that is so nice. I remember so beautiful. We were just sharing some experiences. She was like, come to the beach on a static dance. So then from that event, I went the next week, on the second week, I went to the beach and you put the headphones on and then you are just dancing and someone is making music live, but you have it in your headphones and then you can be free. You can dance, you can move your body, you can...
That is so California.
I was so genuinely happy because being in California was like one of my top dreams in my life, which I really wanted to do in my 20s. And so I was looking at this place. I was like so grateful, so happy. But like the key for that is just being curious, being open, asking questions and connecting on the same experiences or like similar hobbies. So then you can share one event, one experience, one resource to others. Sometimes someone can share something with you. Then you can connect with their friends. When you meet some friends, you can connect them with your friends. So it's the value in both ways. And I feel that very much fascinating because that's what I learned the most in the US. That's how I am able to operate and network so well and actually know many people in the US very quickly. I was able to ending up on some kind of events or like these experiences or like things where you can learn a lot of things which are connected with you and your heart desires.
Something I love that you did is you opened up with things that were not work related. Because I find that a lot of times, and depending on the personality or the language level, I find a lot of people I work with will only talk about work. No, but that's what I'm good at. And I feel comfortable doing it. I'm like, okay, but there's so many other aspects of you. And I think that sometimes they get self-conscious of, I don't know, Americans don't know about cricket and how can I don't know about football and what am I going to talk about? And so what I love that you did is you were just very open. You sharing what you like and then being curious. So that's an interesting pattern that with Americans, I always tell people, don't make small talk conversations feel like an interview. Don't just ask questions. It's important to be curious, but the way that we do it, and I don't know if you've found this, I find that American conversations and small talk especially, it's more like tennis. It's back and forth, whereas other countries, and I don't know about Poland actually, you can tell me that, but I know when I'm working with Latin Americans, Latin America, it's different. It's more you just keep talking until someone interrupts you, and it's very collaborative, I would say. Whereas the US is very much permissive. It's okay, my turn, your turn. But I always recommend before you ask a question, share something about yourself. So if you're going to ask them what your hobby is, say yours first. Oh, I really love yoga. What about you? What do you do on the weekends? And so then you earn trust. It's like these micro trust building that then leads to going deeper faster.
I love that.
Do you feel that that's like the rhythm that you experienced?
Yeah, I love how you actually describe that in a very analogical way, like this tennis. I love that because I feel, of course, you ask a question about someone, but why someone has to answer your question, right? Who are you to actually trust, to be trustworthy? So you have to also present yourself as a trustworthy person. And by sharing all of the experiences or saying something interesting about yourself or about something you know about or something you did, that actually you engage this curiosity with another person too. So at the same time, you can share both back and forth of your experiences and just decide, oh yeah, let's do something together. Let's go there. And oh, I found this. Then maybe we can share that together. So I think that this micro trust at the beginning is super important. And I feel like people are super open in the US. Even when I moved to New York, people at work like started to be very open. And I think that also makes us being authentic and showing this authenticity to one of another, because that's how we earn trust. And being authentic and true to yourself, I think, is the biggest magnet to get people in your field, in your area.
I 100% agree. And actually, authenticity is the perfect segue to the next topic. So now we've covered small talk and being genuine. However, there's also a level of adaptability when it comes to authenticity at work. And something that I think Americans are known for, good or bad, is, and sometimes I feel like it can come across as performative, but the way we speak at work and in corporate settings can be a little of a culture shock, where in terms of how Americans are during meetings, whether it's overly effusive or yeah, that's great, or I think you know what I'm referring to. So how is that for you adapting to, because even though it's Google, there are going to be microcultures. And so now that you're in this US setting, how has that been for you dealing with the American corporate culture?
Yeah, that's like a very comprehensive topic for sure. And very important, because by noticing the European culture, even like British or Irish culture versus American and Californian American and New York American, there's so many different ways and layers of that. But the thing is that being adaptable is so important when you want to build a global career, because you have to make sure that you fit the environment. Of course, you bring something unique and a unique perspective, but at the same time, you need to understand each other on a different level, which also these subcultures are telling you how to behave and how to actually build your personal brand, or how to make sure that you operate as one and towards the common goal in a different ways. So for me specifically, it was that when I moved to California, remember, was that such a big culture of shout outs. Shout out to someone for that, shout out to someone for that. In Europe, there's nothing like that. So you just work and you hope for promotions, right?
So why is everybody getting shout outs?
Yes.
Wait, that's so interesting. But it's really important. You're right. In American culture, the shout out culture, did that feel either confusing? Did it feel, because sometimes things can feel disingenuous until you understand why we do it. So
Yes.
I understand that can be kind of,
Yes.
for lack of a better term, weird.
At the beginning, I was like, where am I?
This was my shout out.
Also, what's my shout out? I got some, but I was, what is my shout out? But also, what I have to shout out people for? It's like, we're just doing our job. What is, so that was a big wow, like, why this function like that? However, after a while, it clicked, and I feel like that's what I will take wherever I'm gonna be. That's what I will take to my work dynamic, my work culture, my work ethics, because that's something which really can show other people that you care, you value them, and that you're able to differentiate others for doing something good. And I feel that was very valuable for me to learn that. And in Europe, I think that's lacking of that, because doing the job, okay, great, but also we are spending our 8 hours per day, even more sometimes, in our work, right? Under our desk and working with the same people. So the most important is to create psychological safety and make sure that we are able to collaborate with each other and support each other, because we're just getting there together. And if we will support each other, it's going to even be better for us to grow the company, but also to grow ourselves and our skills. So it's something which I really enjoyed.
And the psychological safety component, I think, is really interesting as you're moving further up into leadership. what you said really struck me, because the executives that I coach, I'll have a couple who, or several, who, as they're in these higher levels of leadership, some of their feedback is you have to acknowledge people more. And they're like, the same, they're just doing their job. We're all here to do the job. And so going from a regional position to global was a big shift in terms of giving shout outs, giving props, as we would say. It's part of good leadership as defined by American and global standards. And adapting to that has so many benefits because it forces you to see people. It also helps you as a leader. It helps you see who's got potential for maybe different positions or different strengths. It reflects well on you as a leader that you're taking the time to give shout outs, also to give people visibility, to bring their name up in executive rooms where they would never get that visibility is such an asset. And I think something that, in my opinion, as we get higher up in leadership and power, it's how we can pay it forward and bring people up as we're also growing.
Yeah.
Okay, when it comes to adaptability and being authentic, I always tell people, especially when there's a little bit of pushback of, I don't want to be like American. I'm like, no, you don't have to be American. Not at all.
Experience pushbacks like that?
Yes, because sometimes it depends on the situation. I think if a person's already in the structure, but I work a lot with people who are executives at companies that get acquired. And so when you've got that merger and you have to switch your entire business model from German to now English or whatever language, it can be a little bit of a cultural resistance. But I remind people, you can be yourself and adapt. The way I talk to a 5-year-old is different than the way I talk to a 50-year-old, but it's still me. And so in the same way, the way you talk to your executive board, the way you talk to your team, the way you talk to your colleague who's your best friend, they're all you, but there's some adaptability and not conformity, but just understanding what your genuine self is in different formats. Is that something that as your career, because now you have a great position at one of the best companies in the world, what is something that you feel has helped you increase your leadership communication or elevate your communication?
That's such a great question, because when I think about it, I think the more we are in those rooms and we listen to others people's conversations and we see how people are behaving, the more we can spot some different behaviors and different language and different insights, and then we can implement that. So I think that the best way is just be in these rooms and make sure that we are there, even though as an observer, even though as an active participant, or even going to talks or conferences or meetups or events to pick up this language. But I think that the most thing, communicating that you are excited about something. And in California, I noticed that a lot. Oh, I'm excited to do this call together. Oh, I'm excited to do that. I'm excited to do that. And at the beginning, I was like, why people are so excited about those simple things? But then sometimes it was a little bit annoying because it's like, you just do your thing. But then I noticed, because that actually shifts your thinking, and you try to, even though you are not excited, you try to show this excitement and then provide a better output to your work. So then other people can also benefit from that. And within when you are positioning yourself differently and have a different attitude towards the same objective, it changes the whole dynamic as well. So the language, it's so important, like how you actually communicate to your team, to your coworkers, and this honest communication as well, and at the same time being able to articulate things which are in your brain. It's so important because it changes your whole reality and it changes the culture. Learning those phrases to be fully transparent, for example, or I am excited, or I hear you, for example, right? Those kind of little things. And that it really changes the collaboration between teams, between people, between the relationship between you and your manager. So I think that just learning these phrases to pick up and to have a better communication skills can shape better your position or personal branding within the company as well.
And how your message is received. Because if you don't use those phrases, which is a struggle when you don't have, it's not that you don't want to use them, is that you might not have that in your vocabulary yet. But when you're contributing in meetings, instead of just interrupting and saying what you want, to just use a little phrase like, oh, to your point, or to piggyback on that, these tiny little moments that allow people to receive your message for the expertise that it shows, instead of perceiving you as aggressive interrupter. You're appreciated for what you have to bring to the table instead of having to work through misperceptions or try to realign your reputation.
Yes. And also, to your point, active listening. Active listening is so important. You don't respond just for the sake of responding, but you respond to someone's point. And I feel like a lot of people around me, and I can actually right now identify that who is active listening and who is not, because it's respond to react or respond to actually listen. And how it can manifest is that when you, for example, saying something, the other person can say, okay, I understand that you are focusing on this, but I would like this, right? So making sure that you also acknowledge someone else's position and someone else's words rather than just like responding and proving your points right away. And I feel this is so important for us to be better listeners. And even you are starting your career in English, listen, observe, try to be mindful what people are saying and make sense out of it, because then it will become normal for you after some time. But at the beginning, just like making sure that you are understanding what other people are saying and showing them that you're an active listener can also benefit for your reputation too.
So much. And if you have that habit early in your career, by the time you're in leadership positions, it is such an asset and something that, yes, it takes some effort, especially for a non-native English speaker, because a lot of times you're still translating in your head or you're organizing your response. And so active listening is hard for native speakers, but for non-native English speakers, there's an added challenge of, okay, you have to trust that you can formulate your response grammatically and just be in the moment and really understand what they're saying so that you can repeat it. And I find that it really becomes a trust issue of trusting yourself, of trusting my response doesn't have to be perfect, but it can be effective.
Yes.
And then that allows you to listen differently. And I find even with word choice, which is a good thing for a non-native English speaker, when you're active listening and people give you words, it can be as small as if they keep saying that they're stressed and you're thinking the word anxious. If you switch and use the word stressed, they both mean the same thing in that context, but they're going to feel heard. They're going to feel connected with differently if you choose some of their words to infuse in your response. So it also helps because that connection level, you might be talking about being stressed about your mother-in-law visiting in the weekend. But if that interaction goes well, if they feel listened to, if you remember, if on Monday you're like, hey, how was the mother-in-law visit? That's going to lead to that person maybe noticing you in meetings differently or thinking of you as a more empathetic boss. And
Yes.
that builds.
Yes, yes. And that also, I noticed American culture versus European culture. In American culture, everybody on Monday was asking me, how's your weekend? I was like, everybody care? Yeah, exactly.
But I tell people, it's so formulaic that if you can just remember a Thursday and Friday, always ask, what are you doing this weekend? Monday and Tuesday, how was your weekend? Those are just like formula. But then you can elevate it by actually listening when they answer on Friday. And then on Monday, instead of how was your weekend generic, oh, how was your son's baseball game?
Exactly.
You're still going to get a one-word answer. They're probably still going to say, oh, it was great. Thank you for asking. But that interaction is going to be such higher quality. So now that we've gone through your professional journey, something that I want to make sure I highlight that I'm really excited for you, and that from a language challenge, not only have you gone through multiple countries, multiple subcultures within one company culture, you've now decided to start your own podcast in English.
Yes.
So not that you're not busy enough with all the things that you do, what inspired you to add podcasting to that?
I think that the most thing I feel blessed and inspired is that being able to be surrounded with so many inspiring and amusing people. And that is such a privilege for me because someone in Europe or any other part of the world cannot be surrounded with so many founders, wellness practitioners, tech professionals, thought leaders, spiritual seekers, etc. And then the fact that I have so many interests, I travel solo, I am a very reflective person. I also done lots of this meditation, yoga, spiritual, sun healing certifications. I'm Ikigai coach. Like all of that experiences brought me to be me. And I feel like we all have so many multidimensional levels of people's identity. And I would like to show other people as well. As I told you, as my first experience with Google was, right? I heard someone on a podcast that was saying something that, oh, she applied 10 years ago and then she got it after 10 years. All of those people I'm talking and having conversation with, they have their own story. And sometimes this little part of the story can help others to be inspired and to see, oh, okay, that was my limited belief. I can do this despite this, or I can resign from my corporate job to pursue my passion, or my passion can lead me to something bigger, or I can be all of that and I can be authentic and go to the investors meetings and wear whatever I want to wear. Those kind of things, little things, can also show people that in the age of AI specifically, we need to be more human, and we can cultivate that by doing so many other things. And yeah, it's just like a more authentic conversation with others. And having that in English is very interesting because I feel like I wouldn't be able to talk in Polish about those things because I already have phrases in my head by only speaking English the whole time. So I think that it's even easier for me. And also it's very developing for me as well to just having these conversations, even not related to business English, but to casual conversations, and to being able to be present with someone and share their story. Thanks to me as a channel, I am like kind of a channel to that and vessel, but they also it can also help them to answer my questions and to be more reflective about all of that. So I'm very excited for this project.
Me too. And what I love about your podcast, which I'll share the links in the video notes for anybody who wants to follow along with her podcasting journey, is for myself, I do have to fight the tendency to be a bit of a workaholic perfectionist and not always think and do everything about work. And so in the past couple of years, this year specifically, it's branching out. It's making sure I do have other hobbies, that I don't have to be perfect in those hobbies, that I can just enjoy things and try new things. And so I feel like those stories are going to remind people, no matter how amazing or demanding really your position is or your work is, you can choose to make time to have a more well-rounded life. And I'm really excited for you to inspire people for that. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so thrilled to, in the same way that you had an impact with somebody else's podcast and sharing their story, that somebody might hear you and think, why not? Let me try it. Let me do it. Let me go for it. So thank you. Thank you so much for your time. And I'm excited to share your links.
Thank you so much, Tannia. It was a pleasure to speak with you and be on the other side of the podcast this time. So
Now you'll know about what your guests feel.
now I know.
Thank you so much to Victoria. And if you want exclusive access to deeper insights, join the Leadership English Insider community. You can use the link in the episode notes below. And remember, the world needs leaders that sound exactly like you. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next time.